This is your monthly roundup of what's been happening in the watch world. We've seen a whole barrage of new watches being launched, mainly because of Geneva Watch Days, and there's been a couple of interesting things ticking over on the industry side as well. Let's start off with the new watches because there's a whole load to go through. This isn't a full list of all the new watches that have been launched, but these are the things that have stood out to me. We're going to start off with this, the Doxa Sub 300T Aristera. Now this is a standard Doxa Sub 300T with the orange dial, the standard Doxa as we know Doxa to be, but this is a left-hand version for people who wear their watches on the right wrist. This is a standard 42.5mm wide case. It has a massive 1,200 meters of water resistance, but it's limited to 100 pieces. Now I have two ideas around that. One is there aren't many people who want to wear their watches on the right-hand side. The second thing is I feel like this is a little push for them to say, hey, we're still Doxa. Because they also launched this, a fairly large collection of watches with green dials and gold hands and gold hour markers. I feel like this is a very un-Doxa move. I see Doxa as being out and out tool watches. The whole thing is we are just really tool-like. And I feel like a burst green dial, gold hands, gold hour markers, those little details just feel a bit too un-Doxa-like. I'm not a fan. It's a bit like the Land Rover Defender. I feel like Doxa are like the old Land Rover Defender, and suddenly Land Rover come out with this very modern, I do actually quite like the new Defender now, but it's got like these plastic foot plates, these plastic guards that typically would have been aluminium to actually protect something, but now it's just a fashion marker. And I kind of feel like that's what this new green, emerald green is what Doxa are calling it. I feel like that's what this move is with Doxa. And so, going back to my original point, I feel like this limited edition orange dial left-hand watch is them saying, hey, we are still Doxa. We just want to do this green dial as well. So, bit conflicted over that one. Next up, we have Christopher Ward. Now, I've done a whole video on this new watch. I'll put a link in the description down below for that. But this is their new C60 Lumiére. This is a 41mm wide grade 2 titanium dive watch with a water resistance of 300 meters. I think this is a fantastic watch, a really impressive offering from Christopher Ward. As I say, there's a whole video on this thing. So go check that out, link in the description. This is a really impressive watch for less than £2,000. Another new watch is this thing, the Hamilton Khaki Field Quartz. So typically this has been a mechanical manual wind watch. This is now £375. It's a quartz movement. This is quite a big kickback to one of the original Khaki Field watches. I think it looks fantastic apart from, I don't like that little Khaki logo down the bottom. I know it's a kickback, a little heritage mark to one of the older Khaki watches, but I feel like it pushes the watch. I love everything else about this, but I feel like it pushes the watch to be a bit too playful. It's got like a little childlike look about it. Maybe they are trying to angle this towards being a child's watch. It's still killer. It still looks good. Just not a fan of that little Khaki logo. Now, a watch that I am a fan of, the new Tudor Black Bay Chrono in blue. This is a boutique edition. And one thing that I like about this, as opposed to many other boutique editions, I feel like boutique editions are often a little odd, whereas I feel like this in blue is a real genuinely good addition to this range. It's a commercial piece. Many people are going to want this. It looks genuinely good. This is the standard Black Bay Chrono specs, so it's 41mm wide. It's still thick at 14.4mm thick. It's got 200 meters of water resistance, and the movement inside is a cost certified movement. It has 70 hours of power reserve. This costs £4,880, and as I mentioned, this is only available in Tudor boutiques. Now, this next launch absolutely exploded over the weekend. This is the collaboration with Studio Underdog and Moser. There's two watches that have been launched in this collaboration, one by Moser and one by Studio Underdog, but they've had their designs worked on together. First off, we have this Moser Endeavour Perpetual Calendar Passion Fruit. This is a stainless steel case. It's 42mm wide, 12.8mm thick, and it has a lacquered fume dial. The movement inside is Moser's manual wind perpetual calendar movement, and I like how they've been creative around displaying the perpetual, displaying the date side of this movement. We've got the large date over at 4 o'clock, and then you have the month indicator as a central hand. That tiny mini hand in the middle, that indicates the date, because there's 12 dates and there's 12 hours. And then on the back of the watch in the movement, that's where you see the leap year indicator. The movement has 2 barrels, which allows it to have 7 days of power reserve. Now let's check out the Studio Underdog version. This is their 03 series passion fruit. It's got the normal 38.5mm wide case, 13.6mm thick, but the movement inside this one is slightly different from the previous movement, slightly. It's very different. Previously, they've used seagull movements, but this one has a Solita monopusher manual wind chronograph movement, and it has 63 hours of power reserve. Now, these 2 watches, as a collaboration, they're sold as a pair. You can't buy them on their own, and there are only 100 sets of these watches being sold, and the price is 59,000 Swiss francs. Now, Studio Underdog has received quite a bit of hate online for this launch, which I think's a massive shame. I understand it from the viewpoint of Studio Underdog that their offering is fun, affordable, humble watches, and now suddenly they're doing a collaboration, a very expensive collaboration with a horology brand, H.Moser. But why can't we celebrate that? Why can't we celebrate the fact that Rich has grown Studio Underdog from being a Kickstarter project back in 2021 to 3 years later, collaborating with H.Moser. They haven't moved away from their offering. They haven't moved away from the whole premise of the company. It's just a fun collaboration. I really feel like that should be celebrated. Right, now for industry news. So Instagram account, I'm sure you're aware of it, Watches of Espionage. They cover watches in the real world being used by various military units or leaders, or just watches being used for the purpose that they've been designed to be used. Really interesting insights as well into things not many people hear about. Well, that Instagram page, that website is now developed into a YouTube channel, and it is fantastic. They launched their first video just over a week ago. They're going to be dropping every weekend, and do check it out. I'll put a link in the description down below. The first video is around sketchy dudes wear Breitling. Really interesting stories, really interesting insights into a lot of things that people aren't aware of, myself included. A lot of information that not many people have access to. I think that channel is going to be absolutely massive. Link in the description. Go check it out. Like, seriously, it's going to be really cool. So Chanel has bought 25% of MB&F, which is a very interesting move, because it adds to their really quite sizable portfolio of watch investments. They've invested in Khaki, Tudor's movement manufacturer. They've invested a tiny bit into Bell & Ross. They've also invested in Romain Gaultier and FP Journe. Now, Chanel aren't new to watchmaking. They started their own watch department back in 1987, but they're really starting to build this supply chain of component makers, of watch experts. And so I think it's fair to assume we're going to see quite a big thing coming from Chanel. Or maybe they're working on playing the long game. Maybe in 10 years' time, we're going to see something epic come out of Chanel. And then they can legitimately, just like all the large watch brands, watch groups, they can say this is an in-house watch, despite the fact they haven't actually made it. They've just outsourced to these different experts. Really quite an interesting move. And I haven't plugged any of my products. I'm wearing my IWC Mark 20 on a brown ribbed nylon strap that we sell over at barkandjack.com. Guys, what do you think of Chanel's move? What do you think? Have you checked out Watches of Espionage YouTube channel already? What do you guys think of that? And I'd love to know your thoughts on not just the watches that I've mentioned, the new watches. What have been the new watches that have stood out for you that have been launched this month? And has there been anything else that I've missed? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you like the style of this video, hit the subscribe button on that and that little bell icon to get notifications when I drop a new video. If you're on Instagram, give me a follow at barkandjack. If you want to check out watch straps and watch accessories, jump over to barkandjack.com, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care.